Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be breaking down Fables Volume 10. This volume will heavily focus on Flycatcher. Now for this entire series, Flycatcher was just the janitor in Fabletown, and everybody kind of loved him, but he didn't aspire to do much more than that. But this volume, Flycatcher will do something very important. In Volume 9, Red Riding Hood expressed kind of her feelings for Flycatcher, and it freaked him out a bit. And Flycatcher ran off and he turned back into a frog. And Santa Claus had to come around and help Flycatcher turn into a human once again. And in that process, Flycatcher finally remembered that his wife and children died in the Homelands, and they were not just missing. And Santa told Flycatcher that he would do something very important coming up very soon. So in this volume, we will see Flycatcher go on a grand journey and adventure, and it will change the status quo immensely. Alright, let's dive into it now. Fables Volume 10, The Good Prince. Fables Volume 10, The Good Prince, written by Bill Willingham, art by Mark Buckingham, Steve Leialoha, Aaron Alexovich, and Andrew Pepoy. Fables Issue 60, The Good Prince Part 1, Flycatcher. In the business office, Prince Charming, Beast, and Beauty are all talking. Books are stacked up all over the place. It's a mess. Prince Charming comments, "Why is it so impossible to get this crap cleaned up? We've got 100 million square feet of shelf space in this office, but we can't find any room to reshelve these books?" Beauty explains, "Only Buffkin knows where each book goes. He keeps it all in his head, somehow. His one special talent. What's the term? Idiot savant?" Charming asks, "Well, why isn't Buffkin doing his job then?" Beauty answers, "Because only Boy Blue could ever get him to do his work, and you sent him away to the farm. I'll venture I know Blue's secret, though. Boy Blue always treated Buffkin as a friend and equal, while you treat him at the best of times like an indentured servant." Prince Charming, he contemplates maybe threatening Buffkin by sending him up to the farm will work. Beast tells Prince Charming, "That won't work. Buffkin is painfully aware of how much we need him down here. He would just laugh in your face at best, or throw something else in your face at worst." Charming, he remains incredibly annoyed. Red Riding Hood, she comes down to the business office to visit Flycatcher. Flycatcher recently was turned into a frog again, but then he was visited by Santa and then was turned back into a human when his ghost wife came back to kiss him and reversed the spell once again. And Flycatcher's memories have also been restored to him of what happened to his wife in the Homelands and how she is actually really dead. But before, Flycatcher somehow deluded himself into amnesia and believed his wife was still alive. But now that he knows she is dead, Flycatcher is distraught. He is depressed, he has grown a gnarly beard, and he is kind of a mess. Red Riding Hood, though, she cares deeply for Flycatcher, and she talks with him. She is concerned that Flycatcher isn't eating from his depression. Eventually, in an effort to try and get through to Flycatcher, she slaps him in the face and tells him that she won't let him die and waste away to nothing with all of his mourning. She tells him to get angry, try to get vengeance. Red Riding Hood, she tries to put her hand on Flycatcher's shoulder, but that is when Flycatcher tells her, "I can't be anything more than just a friend to you, Riding Hood. We can never be together as all things have to be done properly." Red Riding Hood says that she realizes that. In the business office, Prince Charming sees Buffkin finally, and he orders Buffkin to get back to work. "Clean this place up, put the books away," he says. "I understand you think you're invulnerable around here because you're the only one who knows where everything is. Well, Mr. Buffkin, that's about to end. So if every book isn't cleaned up off of our floors and properly stacked by the end of the day, I'm gonna kill you, and then I'm gonna cook you and then eat you with gusto." Buffkin, he's a little shocked at this. Will Charming really eat him? He better get to work. Later that day, Prince Charming and Beast have a meeting in the park with Geppetto's ambassador, Hansel. Hansel says that he wants the wooden heads and Baba Yaga back. Prince Charming, in exchange, gives Hansel a book. He says, "Here, Ambassador, this is a master list of every missing relative, friend, sweetheart, treasured neighbor, or what have you of concern to our Fabletown community. We want to know what happened to them. Are they dead, captive? Do they have descendants? Where are they now, etc. You find that out for us in detail, and we'll give you your list of surviving heads." Hansel is annoyed. He says this would take years to track all of these people down. Well, Charming tells him that he better get to work then. So for now, the diplomatic discussions aren't really going much of anywhere. It's pretty much both sides just making demands and messing with the other side with kind of unrealistic demands. As Beast and Prince Charming leave this meeting, they discuss how the invisible zephyr gusts of wind are doing as spies. Thanks to Bigby's efforts last volume with his dad, the North Wind, they now have some zephyr gusts of wind that follow Hansel and his associates around secretly. Beast explains that the zephyrs are indeed very good at tracking their prey and remaining unseen, but their reports are a little hard to interpret and are kind of written at a kindergarten kind of level. They're written also from a non-human's perspective of someone only somewhat familiar with humans and the Mundy world. Beast, he reads one of these reports. It goes like this. "Followed stinky breathing one today. He walked past the nice tree and there was a pretty color. And then he turned onto the street I like, where it rained before. And then he ate pig meat and bread and tomatoes and onions and milky white goo and stinky yellow goo all put together." And so on. So the Zephyrs are not really the best spies because of this. Although at least they can't be seen because they're invisible. In the business office, as Buckingham is cleaning and putting the books away, the Forsworn knight that is hanging there in the business office and has been hanging there for many, many years starts to talk. It says very ominously, "The time is coming." This startles Buckingham, as the knight so rarely talks. Flycatcher is now up and about. He decides to take a stand and maybe do something, not just be all depressed and mourning all the time. Flycatcher finds Beast and Prince Charming and tells them he wants to resign his job as janitor. He is grateful for what they did for him over the years, though. He needed family around him to be happy all of these years, and they provided one for him. He says he will always treasure their kindness and friendship. Flycatcher ends by saying, "But now, it's time to tend to my real family. There are things I need to do in their memory, now that I have my memory back. If no one has any objections, I'll be driving the supply truck up to the farm this afternoon." In Fabletown, Frau Totenkinder sees Kay the All-Seer walking down the street. She asks him for help with her groceries and carrying them home. Kay, he knows that Totenkinder is definitely capable of carrying a single bag of groceries on her own. He tells her, "We both know you could lift a yak over your head if you ever found the need to, but he will help her anyway so they can talk." So they walk and talk. Totenkinder asks Kay if he plans on gouging his eyes out again. Kay admits he is contemplating it. It is the only way he knows peace. He doesn't like seeing everyone's dirty past, including his friends. And wearing a blindfold doesn't help because the urge to rip it off is too strong. Totenkinder tells him, well, don't gouge his eyes out because she doesn't like seeing her work destroyed. After all, she is the one that helped him regrow them recently. Also, she says, Fabletown will be needing his penetrating gaze again, real soon. Kay to Totenkinder says, even if it means I also look your way from time to time? Totenkinder asks, what's that supposed to mean? Kay replies, I know what you've been up to, Totenkinder. I know how you really get your power in this world, and such power it is. I'm surprised anyone actually believes you get your power from bleeding a wee bit from each newborn Fable child. What do you even do with that blood? So, he never really discussed the source of Totenkinder's magical powers. Well, back in the Homelands, Totenkinder used to sacrifice children, and that is how she got her power. And that is why she tried to kill Hansel and Gretel. In the Homelands, she would only sacrifice maybe 1 or 2 kids a year, and that would be enough to power her for the coming year. But when she arrived in the Monday, she told the Fabletown community that she stopped killing children for power. Instead, she merely just took a little bit of blood from each newborn Fable, and that was it, and that was enough to power her. However, during this conversation with Kay, it is revealed that that is just a ruse to ease the minds of the Fabletown community. She doesn't actually need their blood, she still needs to kill children to get powered. Kay says to her, "You used to take only 2 young lives a year, and now how many is it? How many hundreds? How much power can you possibly need?" So Totenkinder used to only kill about 2 children a year in the Homelands, but now supposedly she's killing hundreds a year? Think about it. How is she doing that? This is what kind of makes Totenkinder a interesting morally gray character. Yes, she's on the good guy's side for now, helping Fabletown, but she also still is an evil witch who wants power, who does evil things. Now, how is Totenkinder killing hundreds of children a year? Well, there is a popular theory, and it kind of makes sense, that Totenkinder is financing abortion clinics. This has not been officially confirmed, but how else would she be able to kill hundreds of children a year? Totenkinder replies to Kay and his question on how she takes hundreds of children's lives a year by saying, "I invest my wealth in perfectly legal ways among the Mundi." Kay replies, "Legal perhaps, but hardly reputable by our standards." So apparently, the Fable's standards would be against abortion. Kay continues, "And if your methods are so innocent, why keep them a secret?" Totenkinder answers, "I'm a private woman. My business is no one else's. And why are you suddenly so intent on sticking your nose into it?" Kay tells her, "Because you owe more to Fabletown than you currently contribute. I can see some of what you've seen taking place in the Homelands." Totenkinder says, "And you plan to tell them? Our so-called Fable government?" Kay, he continues and threatens, "Better I think that you tell them. Tell them what you've discovered so that we can make preparations. We don't have that much time. And in return, I'll continue to keep your other private matters private." So Totenkinder actually knows more of the going-ons in the Homelands than she is letting on. She perhaps already knows about Geppetto's war plans, but she hasn't said anything yet. But Kay, using his gaze abilities, has seen some of what Totenkinder has seen, and he wants her to finally tell everybody else. This way, the preparations for war can begin. Up at the farm, Stinky the Badger wakes Boy Blue up. Stinky climbs on top of Boy Blue in his bed, and he says, "Yoo-hoo, Mr. Blue! It's time to get up!" Boy Blue wakes up startled and screams, and Stinky the Badger screams back, "Eh!" Boy Blue asks him, "Damn it, Stinky! Why do you have to do that to me every single morning?" Stinky explains, "I keep trying to wake you up gently, sir." Boy Blue replies, "There's no way to gently wake up first thing in the morning seeing a furry snout full of sharp teeth. Can you at least not climb on top of me each time?" Stinky dismisses this and says, "Psh, you'd think you'd get used to it eventually." As Boy Blue looks out the window that morning, he notices Flycatcher is outside. Boy Blue goes down to talk with him. Flycatcher asks Boy Blue for help. Boy Blue says he'll help him. Flycatcher continues, "Good, because I want you to teach me how to use the Witching Cloak and Vorpal Sword. With those, I can go back into the Homelands like you did and kill every goblin I encounter by the thousands or tens of thousands. And over the years, I can depopulate entire towns, or countries, or worlds. I will become a destroyer of those foul things who destroyed me so long ago. So, will you help?" Fables Issue 61, The Good Prince Part 2, Forsworn. Flycatcher asks, "So, will you do it, Blue? Will you help me? I think I can figure out how to use the sword on my own. I just have to swing it in the general direction of the enemy and it does most of the work, right? I should be able to chop them as fast as they come at me until the entire goblin race is extinct. It shouldn't take me more than a few 100 years." Boy Blue, he gets serious. He tells Fly, "Fly, you have an outsider's view of war and its realities. I don't mean to be insulting, but it's a child's view. It's not physically possible to do what you imagine, no matter how powerful the weapon on your side. One man can't destroy entire armies in the field. No magic is that all-encompassing. No matter how much protection the witching cloak gives you, you'd be overwhelmed the first time you faced more than a handful of them. Granted, because the sword does most of the fighting for you, you'd amazingly kill 2 or 3 before the rest got under your guard. If just one of them is able to undo your cloak, then your bloody trail of vengeance is done. Believe me, buddy, some of those battle-hardened goblin troops are trained much better than I ever was. You wouldn't last a year. We have magic, they have magic. We devise strategies and they devise countermeasures. That's the eternal way of war. But you know what? Even if you could do it, I wouldn't help." Boy Blue then goes on to explain that himself, like many other refugees that fled the Homelands and settled here in Fabletown, were offered a fresh start under the general amnesty, pardoning them for any crimes or misdeeds they may have done in the Homelands. And Boy Blue, he worked in the business office for many years. He knows what everyone was pardoned for, but he says, in point of fact, you were the only Fable I know of who didn't need to have anything forgiven, covered up, buried, or absolved. You were the only one who came to us clean and good and innocent. And that's why I would never teach you how to bloody your hands, no matter how necessary or deserved. How many years have we been best friends? What could possibly make you think I'd help soil the one truly decent Fable among us? The only man I've ever admired without reservation. You'll just have to find some other way to destroy yourself, Fly. Now come on in and have some breakfast." So Flycatcher, he is one of the only perfectly true and innocent Fables, never to have killed anyone, not even in war, never had to be absolved for anything, and Boy Blue did not want to ruin that. This innocence of Flycatcher is going to make him a very special person in the coming days. As Boy Blue and Flycatcher head in to get some breakfast, we jump back over to the Fabletown business office. The Forsworn Knight, he says, "The time is coming." Once again, this scares Buckingham, this knight speaking. Buckingham, he wants the knight to stay quiet and not say spooky, ominous stuff. Buckingham, he tries to warn the others in the business office that the knight is talking. He says, "Did you guys hear him? Did ya? He's talking all spooky stuff at me again." The others just ignore Buckingham per usual, though. Totenkinder, she talks with Prince Charming, Beauty, and Beast, and she fills them in on what she has seen from her spies in the Homelands. She will finally reveal some of her sources of information. She explains that she knows Geppetto was the adversary for quite some time. She did not want to compromise her spies, though, so she kept that information to herself until she could reveal it without divulging her sources. Prince Charming, learning this, says, "What? Why would you do that? Why would you keep such vital intelligence to yourself?" Totenkinder explained, "I had no reason to reveal it. For so many centuries, not knowing who the adversary was didn't add to our risk." Beast, he backs her up, saying Totenkinder was right to do as she did. "I've learned enough about the espionage game to know that protecting one's sources trumps just about any other consideration." Anyway, eventually, Prince Charming and the rest of Fabletown found out that Geppetto was indeed the adversary from Boy Blue. So Totenkinder did not have to reveal her sources. But now it is finally time to come clean on who her sources are. Who are her sources? Well, she explains that Geppetto carved many new sons and daughters every year. In time, he trained others to help him create more children faster. Junior apprentices handle the rough work, carving out bodies and limbs. Senior apprentices perform the more delicate work, finishing the heads and hands, for example. And then after the finished work is personally inspected and approved by Geppetto, one of 3 painters adds the final touches, only one of whom paints the eyes. Senior assistant Corwin Peter Pestle paints the eyes for every wooden creature that passes through Geppetto's workshop. Through methods I will keep to myself, I was able to place a personally enchanted paintbrush in among Corwin's tools. Corwin uses my brush in about 1 of every 5 or 6 carvings that pass across his bench. When Corwin does use my brush to paint a new wooden soldier's eyes, I'm able to see through those eyes whenever I wish. The subject of my magic is unaware that I may be looking out through his eyes, seeing what he sees. Prince Charming, learning this, thinks this is marvelous. How many does she control? Thousands? Totenkinder says that, well, it takes me a considerable expenditure of my power over anything I choose to oversee, and I have no control what the subject chooses to look at. I can only piggyback on one subject at a time, but occasionally I get really lucky. Geppetto, he one day carved a wooden owl as a pet for himself, and the eyes of the owl were painted with that special brush. And Totenkinder could look through that owl's eyes, and Geppetto always kept that owl close to himself. And that owl was there when Geppetto was speaking with the Snow Queen about their upcoming war plans. And this is how Totenkinder learned what she learned. She tells them, Geppetto is planning for war. All out war. The Empire plans on invading this world in 3 years' time. In advance of that, they intend to kill all Fabletown fables in ways I've yet to discover. It seems their Ambassador Hansel's only real job here is to devise some way to spirit away all of our captured wooden heads before the killings begin. Flycatcher, he arrives back from the farm to Fabletown. He is bummed out about Boy Blue not helping him with his mission. He goes to sleep in his cot and contemplate what he will do next. Days pass. The Forsworn Knight speaks ominously again. He says, "It's nearly time." Buckingham freaks out again. He begs the knight to stop saying cryptic, spooky things. He says, "You never give any details, so nothing you say is ever useful. So there's really no reason to speak at all, right? I'm not a well monkey. My nerves are on edge. Are you listening to me?" Buckingham, he decides to inspect the Forsworn Knight's helmet. He lifts it, tries to see if anyone is inside. Buckingham, by inspecting the suit of armor, causes it to break and fall apart, and it crashes to the floor into many pieces. Later on, Buckingham is indeed in trouble for breaking the Forsworn Knight. Totenkinder tells Charming Beauty and Beast that each piece of the Forsworn Knight is highly magical, and it is leaking raw magic, and it will take everyone on the 13th floor days, maybe even weeks, to determine the character and extent of the damage. So she says they all have to clear the business office until this raw magic can be cleansed. Prince Charming, convinced of the danger, says, "Alright, that's it then. No one touches these pieces until you give us the official A-OK. We're closing the business office as of now. We'll work out of the penthouse in the meantime. And Beauty, find that damn monkey and then find some place to bunk him. And if no one's willing to put up with him, put him in a detention cell." 2 days later, in Prince Charming's penthouse, it is time to start their own war preparations. Prince Charming tells them of his plans to give Hansel an ultimatum, but not risk letting Hansel know that they're planning for war. Charming also tells Mowgli to go to the Homelands version of Baghdad and take over as ambassador and return King Cole to Fabletown. They will have need of him. Prince Charming, also wants to learn how to speak Arabic. He says he wants Hakim and some of the ladies from Baghdad to be brought to him to give him some lessons. Prince Charming also asks Totenkinder, that paintbrush thing that she was using to spy out of the wooden soldier's eyes, well, would she be able to paint it on the invisible zephyrs that they have spying on Hansel and the rest of his people? Somehow paint eyes on them, and that way they can look out of it? Totenkinder thinks on it and says she will work on it. Later that night, Flycatcher wakes up. He hears a voice calling to him. It tells him to go to the business office. Flycatcher walks by Grimble and sneaks in. And there a ghost talks to him. This is apparently the ghost of the Forsworn Knight, finally free thanks to the armor breaking. The knight says, "Good evening, Prince Ambrose. I am the Forsworn Knight," or his ghost anyway, "recently freed from my armor after all these centuries. And now, I'm your guide for this first part of your journey. Do you prefer to be called Fly or Ambrose? You can call me Lance." This ghost of this Forsworn Knight is actually the ghost of the famous Arthurian knight, Sir Lancelot. Fables Issue 62, The Good Prince Part 3, Knighthood. We will now learn the origin of Sir Lancelot. In the times of King Arthur, Lancelot was one of Arthur's most noble knights. He was part of the search for the Holy Grail. He had a place at King Arthur's round table. As long as Lancelot remained pure and honorable, he would be unbeatable in combat. When he would joust, Lancelot would never lose. However, Lancelot couldn't resist banging King Arthur's wife Guinevere. By laying with her, Sir Lancelot was no longer pure and honorable. And by no longer being pure and honorable, he was no longer unbeatable in combat. And Lancelot got bested in a tournament. Thus King Arthur and others knew that Lancelot was no longer honorable, and accusations and speculations flew. It led to trials, and then revolt, and then war. And Lancelot, he split King Arthur's round table, and it led to the downfall of Camelot. In the end of the battling, though, King Arthur forgave Lancelot, but Arthur's clemency broke Lancelot's spirit, and he couldn't bear it, so he hanged himself. In the current day now, Flycatcher asks Lancelot, "And this armor you wore that made you unbeatable, it's mine now?" Lancelot says yes, and perhaps you can take the curse off of it. Flycatcher says, "And you'll serve me, Lance? That's part of it? The first steps towards your own redemption?" Lancelot will indeed serve Flycatcher. Flycatcher tells him, "Come on, we've got so much to do." Beast and Prince Charming, elsewhere, have another meeting with Hansel. Since Prince Charming learned of Geppetto's war plans, Prince Charming no longer has time to mess around. Charming tells Hansel, "We've changed our approach, Ambassador Hansel. Rather than drawing things out, we've decided to move negotiations along rapidly, thus wasting no more of your time and, most important, mine. In fact, we've decided to jump directly to our endgame. Here's our one and only offer to you and your bloody puppet master. We've decided you can have the heads of your wooden soldiers, all of them. In exchange, though, we want a cease of all hostilities, a peace treaty signed, and, as reparations for your previous war crimes, we want 1/10 of all Imperial lands signed over to Fabletown. We understand the Empire currently spans about 100 fabled worlds. Well, we'll take 10 of them. Whichever 10 worlds your master chooses, as long as they have gateways connecting them directly to each other. The current populations of those worlds will not have to move. We'll accept them as we find them and gradually mold them to our ways. Then, all lost relatives, friends, and descendants of our fables will be invited to emigrate from the Empire to our new worlds. Basically anyone who appears on the original lists that we gave you. Finally, and only after all of the previous conditions have been met, Geppetto will be allowed and required to sign the Fabletown Compact, officially pardoning all of his past misdeeds. Hansel is outraged by this. Geppetto's never gonna go for this. Prince Charming says it is non-negotiable. The deal is only good for 90 days. That should give you enough time to scurry home and get your master's reply. Now, with that concluded, I invite you to get out of my sight. Show your ugly mug in this world again without your puppeteer's answer, and I'll have you strung up in the middle of the street. Hansel is so outraged, he says to Charming that he is no diplomat. Charming replies, yes, this is an ultimatum. Now, sither along, we're finished, we're done now. We require nothing more of you. Prince Charming, he knows that Geppetto will never agree to this ultimatum, but by seizing all other diplomatic discussions and demanding this ultimatum, Hansel will have no choice but to return to the Homelands and tell Geppetto the offer. And when Hansel does head to the Homelands, Fabletown will be spying on Hansel with the Zephyrs with Totenkinder's magic paintbrush eyes on them. And they will finally learn the location of the doorway Hansel and Geppetto are using to get back and forth between the Homelands and the Mundi, as well as perhaps other information. Inside the business office, Flycatcher bathes and shaves, and Flycatcher talks to the magic mirror and tells it, "Mirror, mirror, my old friend, I need to ask your help again." The mirror says anything he wants. Flycatcher continues, "I want to thank you for going along with the others and pretending to search for my lost wife and children." The mirror answers, "I didn't enjoy deceiving you, but we all thought it was for the best." Flycatcher responds, "Don't worry, it was. You were a good friend, and now I want you to do one further kindness for me." The mirror says, "Name it." Flycatcher says, "Keep an eye on me, and let those back here see everything. It's important that they know and understand what's about to happen." Elsewhere, later on, we see Prince Charming, Beast, and Beauty are talking with Totenkinder. They are using the Zephyrs to spy on Hansel. Totenkinder explains, "Yes, and now that my group on the 13th floor is directly piggybacking their vision on that of the Zephyrs, we're gathering our information in real time." Totenkinder says that after the meeting Charming had with Hansel, Hansel and the others went directly back to their embassy and are now feverishly tearing through every book and document. They are trying to figure out what is the reason for Charming's sudden ultimatum. Charming tells Totenkinder to keep him apprised on any new developments. Beauty, she asks Totenkinder about the Forsworn armor cleanup going on in the business office. How is it coming along? Totenkinder answers, "The armor is being cleaned, finally. It's all going according to schedule." Totenkinder seems to know exactly what is going on with Flycatcher and Lancelot in the business office, and she is trying to keep the office clear for them so that no one will stop them in their plans. In the business office, Lancelot helps Flycatcher get into his armor, the same armor that Lancelot was wearing all those years when he was hanging. The armor, once it is placed onto Flycatcher's body, becomes new and shiny again, and it reshapes itself to Flycatcher's tall and lanky proportions. Once Flycatcher is all suited up, Lancelot says Flycatcher needs a weapon. They walk over to Excalibur, the sword in the stone, which just so happens to reside in the business office. Lancelot tells Flycatcher to retrieve it. Flycatcher says, oh, he's not worthy to wield Excalibur. But Lancelot answers, if you aren't meant to wield it, you won't be able to pull it from the stone. We're still at the part of your mission where I am your guide, remember? I know this is what you need to do, so go ahead. Flycatcher, he puts his hand on the handle of Excalibur, and he pulls the sword, and he removes it from the stone. Flycatcher, with Excalibur now, is in awe. He says, but I'm no warrior. I was a prince, yes, but never a knight. In the only battle I ever tried to fight, I was defeated by my own curse before it ever began. Lancelot replies, If that's so, then kneel, Prince, for it's important now that all things be done according to the law. Lancelot makes Flycatcher kneel, and Lancelot places a sword on Flycatcher's shoulder, and he knights him, making Flycatcher a proper knight. He tells Flycatcher, "You knelt a man and a prince of the blood, but now rise a knight." Lancelot tells Flycatcher, "Keep in mind that you'll be unbeatable in battle as long as you wear this armor, wield Excalibur, and most important, only as long as you keep pure and good. The fact that you were able to draw Excalibur from the stone proves that you're destined to be the one true and rightful king." Flycatcher asks, "Yeah, but a king of what land?" Lancelot answers, "Well, that's the question now, isn't it? Got any ideas? Because I have to confess that from here on out I'm drawing a blank." So Lancelot does not know what Flycatcher should do next. Flycatcher, he thinks on it, and then he says, "Yes, Lance, I do have an idea. Since your knowledge and vision has imposed no particular kingdom on me, then my recent visions take precedence. I know where I'm destined to rule. At long last, it's time for me to go home." Flycatcher wants to return home to the Homelands, to his home castle where he served as a prince. But how will he get there? Flycatcher leads Lancelot, and they head over to the Witching Well. Flycatcher, from his visions, believes that this is the way they should go. This is where their journey will take them. He tells Lancelot, "This is the Witching Well. It destroys and devours, but our path lies this way. Jump quickly behind me so we don't become separated. If you get lost down there, I don't know that even my new powers can find you again." Fables, issue 63, The Good Prince Part 4. Home. Up at the farm, Prince Charming meets with Snow White, Rose Red, and Bigby. He fills them in on the recent developments in the coming war. Bigby asks, "What's the plan?" Prince Charming answers, "Why, we're going to crush them, of course. We're going to write an end to their filthy empire once and for all. I think our first strike has to be a big one. I think we should try nothing less than to destroy all gateways linking their imperial homeworld to any other place, thus isolating them from the remainder of their empire, cutting the head off the body, so to speak. Here's how I propose we do it. Over the next 2, maybe 2.5 years, we begin to..." And as they continue to discuss their plans, we jump to the Homelands, to the Imperial City. Some of the army is talking with the fake emperor, and Geppetto is there in the room as well, resting on a rocking chair in earshot. They discuss how Fabletown, with their magic beanstalks, can drop out of the clouds at will from anywhere. The fake emperor asks, how many magic beans do they have? The military leaders do not know, though. They think it may be possible they even have some magic beans of their own here in the Homelands they can use, but they do not know where they are. A lot of the magical items were locked up in the beginning of the war without proper record keeping or cataloging. Geppetto, he is informed by a soldier in the room. "Hey sir, we heard a rumor that Pinocchio had been staying at an inn just outside of Gull Harbor. When we arrived, we discovered he was there all right, but we arrived too late. He already left." Geppetto answers, "Keep looking. Use more men if you have to, but I want him brought back here. A boy should be safe at home with his father." So Pinocchio seems to be out gallivanting about. In Fabletown, now that Flycatcher is on his way, Totenkinder tells everyone that the business office has been cleaned of the raw magic and they can go back to it again. Beauty, Beast, Buffkin, and even Frankenstein's head, they all move back into the business office. Beast, he gets on the phone. He starts making calls. It is time to start calling in fables living all over the world and bringing them in for training. All the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and so on generation fables are to finally come home. Totenkinder, she made a phone call herself and she just got off it, and she says that the 13th floor witches told her that They saw through the Zephyr spies following Hansel that Hansel and his group have destroyed a lot of documents, all of which they were able to see through the Zephyrs. Hansel and his people have also booked flights to South America. Perhaps their gate to the Homelands might be there, or it might be somewhere else. Buffkin, he realizes in the business office that Excalibur is gone, and he informs the others. In the Arabian Homelands, Mowgli visits King Cole and tells him that it is time for him to go back home to Fabletown. Mowgli is going to take over here. He is going to be teaching people English. King Cole, upon hearing this news, asks, "Oh dear, Mowgli, we're at war, aren't we?" Mowgli answers, "If not now, then soon, but this time we have powerful allies here and in the Cloud Kingdoms, and we have a secret weapons project which I will be proposing to our hosts." We see Beast and Bigby traveling across America. They are making deals with Mundy mercenary training companies, like a sniper school in Arizona and a private special forces and commando school in Knoxville, Tennessee. These are all ex-military, ex-FBI, ex-SWAT people. They train military and law enforcement. Well, Beast and Bigby, using fake names, wish to buy their exclusive services for the next 4 years. They want availability on all slots, on all classes, and exclusive use of their personnel and facilities. When they are told that, that's going to be expensive, Beast makes them an offer of so much money they can't refuse. Fabletown is going to be running their people through these schools over the next few years, preparing for the coming war. We jump back over to Flycatcher and Lancelot, and their journey in the Witching Well. It has been about a half a year now in the Witching Well. We see Lancelot walking around what looks to be a deserted, apocalyptic area. He finds Gretel, Hansel's sister. She was thrown down here when she died over 100 years ago when her brother killed her. Lancelot says to her, "My name is Lancelot, and I've been looking for you for a long time. I wonder if you'd like to come with me." Gretel, she follows Lancelot. Now Gretel, she is a ghost, but as they walk closer and approach Flycatcher's vicinity, Gretel becomes solid once again. Her ghostly form forms flesh. Lancelot explains, "It means we're getting close. Ghosts turn solid around the boss." Here we are. Lancelot and Gretel join Flycatcher, as well as many others that have died and been thrown down the Witching Well over the years. They have all gathered to hear what Flycatcher has to say. Somehow Flycatcher, with the armor protecting him that makes him unbeatable in battle, along with Excalibur, is able to survive the Witching Well. Not only that, the magics make him able to make the ghosts down here alive and solid again, at least when they are within a certain distance of him. Some of the notable dead people down here with Flycatcher are Mr. Webb, some of the Mouse Police, Boo Bear, Bluebeard, Shere Khan, 2 of the 3 little pigs, Don and Posey, Trusty John, Waylon Smith, and many others. Flycatcher tells the group, "Ghosts of the land below the well. Some of you may remember me from your days among the living. My name is Ambrose, and I'm a prince of a distant land. Most of you have been trapped down here for centuries, some less so, but all of you have suffered long enough. This dismal land is a dead place in every sense of the word. Nothing finds new life here. No one escapes this land until now. I'm the first to survive the trip down the well. I'm the first to successfully journey living to this place of absolute death. I've broken its power for a time. I've come to lead you away, back to fields of light and beauty. I can't return you to life, but while you're with me, you'll be whole, just as if you were still living. In return, you'll be my army, a host of spirits made flesh again. If you serve me faithfully in time, I'll release you to continue on to whatever rewards await." We have a long journey ahead of us, and weeks or perhaps months before we'll emerge to a place where anything can live and grow. So I warn you in advance, there will be hardships. You'll hunger and have nothing to eat. You'll thirst and find nothing to drink. But you won't die because you're already dead. Your suffering will be great, but you can endure it. The alternative is that you remain here, and after I've gone, you'll return to your permanent ghostly state, where once again you'll be immune to physical discomfort. Flycatcher, he rests a bit now. He will be leaving soon to begin this journey, and as he explained, the journey will be long. It will take them weeks or months of walking through this dreadful place, but eventually they will make it out of here. Shere Khan and Bluebeard discuss. Will they be going with Flycatcher? Shere Khan asks, "Are you really going to bend the knee to this imbecile?" Bluebeard says that's exactly what he's going to do. The only alternative is staying here in eternal misery and frustration. For now, they have little other options. Bluebeard and Shere Khan, even though they are villains, will join Flycatcher. Flycatcher talks with Trusty John. Trusty John betrayed Fabletown due to his vow to a king under Geppetto's control. But now that Trusty John has died, that previous oath is broken as it ends at the grave. Thus, Trusty John is free to swear a new oath of loyalty to Flycatcher. Flycatcher accepts Trusty John in his service, and he asks Trusty John to be his squire. Trusty John accepts enthusiastically. Flycatcher also finds Waylon Smith, and the two of them hug. Waylon asks what is his duty to be, and Flycatcher replies, "Your job's most important of all. I need the world's greatest builder to restore some long-dead stones to life." Now with Trusty John and Waylon Smith now with Flycatcher, they will be his greatest allies going forward. After this short rest, Flycatcher and all of his new allies begin their journey. Back in Fabletown in the business office, the magic mirror starts projecting what is going on in the Witching Well and what Flycatcher is doing. When Buckingham sees this, he calls all the others to come and see, and they all begin watching Flycatcher's adventures in the Witching Well. As Flycatcher and the others all begin walking, Lancelot asks Fly, "Some of the decisions you're making disturb me. Regardless of what they say, Shere Khan and Bluebeard are still villains. Their undiminished avarice is obvious to anyone to see." Flycatcher responds, "Oh, I know that well enough, and more, they plan to betray me at the first opportunity." But Flycatcher says, even they have a part to play in his plans. Lancelot also questions Flycatcher on his decision to make Trusty John his squire and giving Trusty John Excalibur to hold for Flycatcher. After all, Trusty John is a recent traitor to Fabletown. Flycatcher answers, "John only broke one oath because it conflicted with the previous one. He'll remain true to me. You'll see plenty of evidence for that before all is done. And I don't want to get into the habit of carrying such a powerful weapon. Otherwise, it might tempt me to do this the easy way, with great and mortal battles. Instead, I think I'm going to try and do this another, much harder way. Probably won't work out, but we'll see." Fables issue 64, Interlude, The Birthday Secret. The artwork in this issue is by Aaron Alexovich, and it has a very different, more cartoony little kid kind of style. Up at the farm, various fables from across the Mundy world have arrived. Rose Red and Boy Blue tell which ones are going to the sniper school and which ones are going to the commando school. The various fables are excited to learn to be badass fighters. Up at the farm, two fables there are participating in some sort of war games and they are hiding in the grass. But the wolf cubs sneak up on them and scare them. The two trainees freak out, and the little wolf cub kids laugh. They got them good. Snow White, flying on the magic carpet, tells the kids, "If I told you naughty cubs once, I told you 1,000 times not to interfere with the war games training. And you're all far too old to go running around naked in human form. Change back to wolves this instant. and then get home. We see up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Some other Fables are doing their commando training. They are training to try and hunt Bigby, but they fail to sneak up on him and he gets the jump on them. The trainees tell Bigby after, "This wasn't a fair test anyway. You can hear and smell us from miles away." Bigby tells them, "True, but look at it this way. If by some miracle you did learn to actually sneak up on me, you can sneak up on anyone. The Empire will have some nasty customers with trained or magic-enhanced senses too. Count on it. The enemy always has surprises." A day or so later, Bigby arrives back home up in Wolf Valley. He is in bed sleeping with Snow White. And in the morning at 5 a.m., the wolf cubs climb onto their bed and start jumping around. Today is their 5th birthday, and they don't want to waste an hour of it with everybody sleeping. Later on that day, Rose Red and Boy Blue are on the farm, and they are waiting for Snow White to pick them up with the magic carpet to take them over to Wolf Manor so they can celebrate the cubs' 5th birthday party. As Rose Red and Boy Blue wait, they discuss what it must be like for Snow White raising 6 kids. Boy Blue asks if Rose Red ever thought about having children herself over the years. Rose Red replies, "Oh, not really. I haven't even come close to thinking about getting married, much less having kids. I mean, there's no one to, Then there is an awkward silence between the two of them. Boy Blue and Rose Red seem to be going down the path of having romantic feelings for one another, but neither of them are fully ready to face and admit to those feelings at this point. Before Rose Red and Boy Blue get picked up and arrive for the cubs' birthday party, Snow White and Bigby sit the wolf cubs down for a very important meeting. It is their 5th birthday, and Snow and Bigby think it is time for the kids to know about their extra brother, Ghost. They tell the kids that they have to tell them a very important secret, one that can't be shared with Auntie Rose Red. Snow says, "This is very important, children. No one outside the 8 of us can ever know what we're about to tell you. If this secret ever gets out, even to our most trusted friends, we would all be in a great deal of trouble. Your father and I could even be sent away to prison." Bigby adds, "Or worse. So if any of you doesn't think you can keep this a secret, speak up now and we'll wait another year to tell you." The little wolf cubs, they want to know the secret now. They don't want to wait another year to find out. They beg to know it. Bigby tells them, "All right, you 6 have another brother we never told you about before. His name is Ghost, and he's been living here with us for some time, ever since we moved to Wolf Valley." Snow White adds, "We've been hiding him for reasons we'll explain someday, but he's the same age as you are, part of the same litter." Bigby tells Ghost, "Ghost, maybe you'd better introduce yourself to your brothers and sisters." Ghost, he says, "Hello, I've been looking forward to finally being allowed to talk to the rest of you." The kids, they think it's pretty cool that they have another brother, an invisible one. They ask, are they going to learn how to turn invisible too? Bigby answers, "No, you won't. Ghost is unique. He's not just another thing you unruly thugs can learn to turn into." Ghost, he explains a little bit about himself. He says, "I don't have a body like you do. I'm just made of air and nothing else." The kids ask more questions. What does he eat? The answer is other types of air. Does he poop? The answer is no, but he can fart real good. The kids quickly accept their new invisible brother Ghost, and they all go outside and play. When Boy Blue and Rose Red arrive later, they have a good time celebrating with the children, and eventually it is time for them to head home. Rose Red asks Boy Blue, "Do you think the kids were acting weird today?" Boy Blue replied, "Well, they're always acting weird, but yeah, there was something in the air." As the wolf cubs, including Ghost, play with their toys later that night, they are playing with a Jack Horner doll and some other action figures. Ghost, he runs a toy sword through the Jack Horner toy. Darian and Connor are upset by this. This doll is a collector's item, and Ghost ruined it. And somehow, 1,000 miles away like a voodoo doll, the real Jack Horner gets a sword stabbed through him too, somehow, and he yells, "Hey, is this supposed to be funny? Well, I'm not laughing." This random sword stabbing through Jack Horner is something that would be followed up on in the Jack of Fables spin-off series. But for now, that is the end of the Interlude story. We will now return to Flycatcher's tale. Fables issue 65, The Good Prince Part 5, Duel. It has been roughly 37 days since Flycatcher has been walking with the ghosts through the wastelands of the Witching Well world. Even though for the ghosts, their flesh is magical and a fabrication, and even though their hungers are imaginary, the pain feels all too real. Lancelot tells Flycatcher that more of them desert him every day. They slip off during their sleep to return to being ghosts again, back to where they can't suffer pain or hunger or thirst. Flycatcher to this says, "That's as it should be, Lance. I think one of the reasons for this long journey through the Deadlands is to weed out those who can't take the hardships. Those who stay with us to journey's end will be the ones strong enough to face the trials to come." As Flycatcher leaves to rest, Lancelot, Wayland Smith, and Trusty John discuss. They are worried about Flycatcher. As ghosts, the pain they suffer is imaginary, but for Flycatcher, who is still alive, his agony is real. Wayland says that Flycatcher hasn't had a morsel to eat nor aught to drink since he landed down here among us. He's surely dying. Lancelot theorizes that he thinks Flycatcher has been drawing power from his armor to sustain him, but even that great power has its limits. He fears their prince may be draining it faster than it can renew itself. Wayland, he comes up with a solution. He says, "Well then, we take some of the burden onto ourselves, that's what. From now on, we will carry him, and we don't let him say otherwise." In the business office, a crowd is now watching through the magic mirror Flycatcher's adventures. They are rooting for him. It's almost like a TV show to them now. Rose Red asks Totenkinder, is there anything they can do to help him? Totenkinder answers, "Not from here. The Deadlands below the Witching Well are beyond even my powers. Prince Ambrose will survive, though." Boy Blue asks, how can she be so sure? Totenkinder replies rather ominously, "Because it would spoil too many of my plans if he didn't." In the Homelands, in the Imperial City, the Snow Queen has chunks of the magic beanstalk, the one that Bigby used and destroyed when he raided the Homelands. The Snow Queen has brought these beanstalk stumps to the top research sorcerers the Empire has to offer, and she tells them to use their skills and powers to study them, find a way to create more beanstalks they can use. Back in Fabletown, Beast and Totenkinder have tea in Totenkinder's apartment. Beast asks her, does she think they have a real chance of defeating the Empire in the coming war? Totenkinder quickly and confidently answers, "No, of course not." Beast replies, "Huh?" But Totenkinder continues and says, "Calm down, Sheriff. You look like you could burst a vessel. Sip your tea. Do you honestly imagine this is a war between Fabletown and the Empire? It isn't. At best, you're merely pieces in a greater game. Ever since I knew of a mysterious conqueror, this has always been a private duel between Geppetto and me. Though I didn't originally know who he was, and he doesn't yet know who his true opponent is. For centuries, I've been gathering my strength, carefully positioning my resources." Beast asks her, "You mean to say you've been using us the same way Geppetto uses his minions?" Totenkinder answers, "Not at all, dear boy. You imply I have no real affection for you. But in truth, I've grown quite fond of my community here. You've made me ever so much more welcome here than I ever was before. So I intend to save as many of you as possible. I've a great debt to pay for an undeserved act of kindness done to me long ago, in an old burned cottage in the woods." We see a flashback to Totenkinder's early days. She was cast out of her original tribe for consorting with foul spirits. And much later on, when Hansel and Gretel burned her up in her oven, She was there in that oven for many, many years. Eventually, the Adversary's forces began invading various homelands, and Snow White and Rose Red were on the run, and they happened to stumble across Totenkinder's cabin, and they found her in her oven. But rather than move on, which may have been the smart decision with the Adversary's forces around, they decided to stay and care for her, and nursed Totenkinder back to health. Totenkinder says, "It was then that I vowed to make their enemy my enemy and destroy the Adversary, wiping all of his works from the face of the earth." Beast asks Totenkinder, "As long as you're bludgeoning me with so much rare candor, what are your ultimate plans, Totenkinder? Are we about to trade one tyrant, Geppetto, for another, you?" Totenkinder says that she has no desire to rule. When all things are done, she plans to retire in some remote part of the world. Or maybe she'll get young again and have a romance. Who knows? Back in the Witching Well, Flycatcher's followers threaten a mutiny if Flycatcher doesn't allow them to carry him, so Flycatcher is forced to accept. After many more days of walking of Fly being carried, the group spot a gap ahead. They may have finally reached the end of this land of the dead. Shere Khan and Bluebeard discuss their plans, about how they are not loyal to Fly, but for now they still have to follow him or risk turning into ghosts again. Later on, we see Prince Charming. He is learning to speak Arabic from some of the Arabian fable women who stayed in Fabletown. Back now in the Witching Well, Flycatcher and the others, they march past the gap, and they finally leave the land of the dead of the Witching Well, and they enter somewhere in the Homelands. It is now alive, lush and green, and there is a stream of drinking water, and there are stars in the sky. They stay here for a few weeks, drinking water and eating fruit, and regaining their strength. Flycatcher, he even feels full and stuffed with food. Eventually, they march onward, and after a few more weeks of travel, they come across an old, destroyed castle. Flycatcher says this is their final destination. This was his home so long ago. There used to be a village right over there, and farmlands as far as the eye could see. Flycatcher tells Waylon that they will need a new castle rebuilt and his quarters restored, and we'll all need to pitch in and start clearing farmland again. We'll need lots of it because this is now the center of a new kingdom, which will grow surprisingly fast. Others will start arriving soon. Bluebeard and Shere Khan scheme some more. Shere Khan tells Bluebeard that he was right. They needed to stay loyal to Fly so that they could escape that land of the dead. But now that they are here, Shere Khan thinks they should kill Flycatcher. Bluebeard is not so sure though, he says. Flycatcher said we'd all return to ghosts without him. No, I think it's best to bide our time until we can locate and contact allies who also have the power to grant new flesh to old ghosts. If we're truly back in the Homelands, then Fly will have many enemies here. Many very magical enemies. Fables issue 66, The Good Prince Part 6, Envoy. Lancelot, acting as envoy for Flycatcher and Flycatcher's new kingdom, which Flycatcher has dubbed Haven, he visits the fake emperor in the Imperial City. Lancelot introduces himself as such. "Mighty Emperor, ladies and gentlemen of the Imperial Court, allow me to introduce myself. I am the ghost of Lancelot of the Lake, former knight of the Round Table, and now official envoy to your august court from the new kingdom of Haven. I have the singular honor to represent its uncontested ruler, the most noble King Ambrose I. The guards try to stop him, but Lancelot is just a ghost, and he merely just walks by them all. The Emperor tells his guards to kill this creature. The guards try, but their swords just slice through air and do not harm Ghost Lancelot. Lancelot tells them it's probably best to get nonsensical matters out of the way so that we may proceed to the heart of our business together? So Lancelot is essentially telling them to go ahead, slice them to their heart's content. It will not do anything to him. He also invites the sorcerers to join in. Go ahead, blast him with spells. After a few minutes of this, and Lancelot still standing there unharmed, the Emperor says,
Very well then, if we can't destroy you or dismiss you, we suppose we must hear you out. Say whatever it is you came to say, ghost.
Lancelot gives a very simple message, he says. As I said before, I'm the select envoy from the Kingdom of Haven. In this first meeting, our message to the Empire is simple enough. In a nutshell, I'm here to inform you that we exist. In the newly established Kingdom of Haven, we see construction is well underway on the castle, and the farmlands are starting to take shape. Flycatcher orders many of his loyal subjects to fan out into the world and spread the news that Haven exists, and anyone who wishes to find sanctuary away from the Empire are invited to live here instead. He says to the ghosts, you'll turn ghostly again shortly after leaving my lands, so nothing will be able to harm you. But all who you wish to will be able to see and hear you. So go, please, my friends. Find those who want to live here in peace. Guide them back to Haven, and scout the way for them, avoiding what dangers you can. Bluebeard and Shere Khan are discussing the progress of Flycatcher's new kingdom. Bluebeard is impressed, especially with how good a builder Wayland Smith is. Bluebeard comments to the tiger, I admire excellence wherever it's found. I'll have to devise some way to keep Smith around and seduce him into my service once I take over. Shere Khan asks, when you take over? Bluebeard replies, of course. You've no skills in administrating a kingdom, so I'll have to assume the crown by necessity once the bloodletting is done. But don't worry, Shere Khan, there will always be a place for you in my new regime. Every king needs a good killer on his staff. That's how kingdoms are kept. Shere Khan is annoyed that Bluebeard wants to be in charge. He is also annoyed that Bluebeard keeps coming up with reasons and excuses to avoid killing Flycatcher and taking over. So Shere Khan finally decides to attack Bluebeard. He bites into him, tearing off Bluebeard's head and ripping his flesh. Bluebeard seemingly dies. Again. But the thing is, Bluebeard was always still just a ghost. He was just a ghost with flesh, thanks to Flycatcher. And now that Shere Khan has ripped into him, he just turns into a ghost once again. Flycatcher walks over to Shere Khan from all the commotion, and Shere Khan tries to attack Flycatcher too. But Flycatcher tells the tiger, how can you imagine harming me when you're merely an insubstantial spirit? The flesh and bone you enjoyed was my gift, which I can withdraw at will. As Shere Khan attacks Fly, Khan becomes his ghost form again, and his attack does nothing. Flycatcher tells Khan and Bluebeard, who is now a ghost once again, I'd hoped better from you two. I wanted to believe even the worst villains could reform. So much for wishful thinking. Now it's time for both of you to be on your way. I banish you from my kingdom. Bluebeard argues, but I didn't do anything. Fly tells him, oh, did you think I was ignorant of your plans? Go on, get out. Off with you now. As the two villains of Bluebeard and Shere Khan leave, Trusty John asks Flycatcher if it is wise to let them go. Fly replies, of course it is. Who else can I count on to faithfully guide the Empire's armies back here to destroy us? So Flycatcher purposely wants the Empire's armies brought here to Haven. Back to Lancelot and his talk with the Emperor. The Emperor asks,
and exactly where is this supposed new kingdom of yours?
Lancelot answers, I imagine you'll find it soon enough. We don't intend to try and hide it from you. Far from it, in fact. Haven exists specifically as an alternative to the Empire. Within the Empire itself, we plan to make our existence known far and wide. And the sweetest thing is, you'll find there's nothing you can do about us. Where my king's magic rules, you'll discover none of yours can prosper. we expect to be quite the thorn in your paw." Lancelot then leaves, but he says, "From time to time I'll appear here again as needed to communicate any further messages from my king." Back to Haven, Flycatcher's kingdom. Boy Blue, using the witching cloak, has come for a visit and talks with Flycatcher. Boy Blue couldn't use the witching cloak when Fly was in the land of the dead in the witching well, but he can use it now to teleport here to Haven. Boy Blue and Flycatcher hug. Boy Blue crammed all sorts of useful things for Flycatcher in his cloak. Food, clothing, tools, spices, oil lamps, fertilizers, seeds, books. All of Fabletown fanned out into the Mundy to shop for everything that Flycatcher and his new kingdom could need. Prince Charming also had some posters made up and printed, and they can get the Cloud Kingdom allies to drop them all over the many homeland worlds. The posters will explain who Fly is and their kingdom and how they are accepting new people. Boy Blue, he also has a request from Prince Charming. He says, "If this land is really as secure as you claim, Prince Charming wants me to start transferring caches of modern weapons here, a forward supply dump for when the shooting starts." Flycatcher, he surprisingly denies this request. He says, "Absolutely not. I can't let you stash weapons here. The magic that lets me rule here is a fragile construct. It won't abide too much fiddling outside of what I've already set in motion." Boy Blue is a little puzzled. He says, "But, Fly, they're gonna be coming after you with massive armies." Flycatcher to this says, "And I will defeat each one they send me, but strictly with the weapons I already have on hand." As Flycatcher, I'll always be a member of Fabletown, and my heart is thoroughly in your camp. But, as King of Haven, I can't formally take sides in your coming war. My duty is to be a third alternative, a giant monkey wrench thrown into the machinery of conquest. But don't think I'm abandoning you, Blue. By the time your war starts, they'll have fruitlessly wasted so much effort and manpower against me that they'll have precious little left to spend on you. That's my gift to Fabletown. Be sure to make good use of it." Days later, the ghost of Bluebeard and Shere Khan have found some of the Empire's forces and have led them back to Haven. The Empire's forces here are led by a General Hildebrand. The Empire has promised to get their warlocks to make Bluebeard and Shere Khan whole again in exchange for leading them here. Flycatcher, he gets into his armor, and he has Trusty John give him Excalibur. And then Fly and Trusty John head out to parley with General Hildebrand and his massive army. Elsewhere in Fabletown, in the business office, many members of the Fable community are all watching through the magic mirror what is going to happen next. Fables issue 67, The Good Prince Part 7, Haven. On the battlefield, Flycatcher and Trusty John march to parley with General Hildebrand. Hildebrand respects their parley and they talk. Hildebrand introduces himself and his massive army that stretches for miles and is filled with giants and goblins and much more. Hildebrand comments how his army is much more massive than Flycatcher's, and if Flycatcher should push for battle, he will surely be defeated. Flycatcher tries to make a point, though. He tells Hildebrand to put his squire here, Trusty John of Haven, to the sword, slice into him and kill him. The general is a little confused, but after Flycatcher and Trusty John insist, the general complies. He pulls out his sword, and he slices through Trusty John's body, cutting him in half vertically, and Trusty John seemingly dies once again, but John, he returns instantly as a ghost. Flycatcher explains, "The body your man killed was merely imaginary, magically conjured flesh. See here that John's ghost is still among us, unharmed. And now, behold, I let the carcass on the ground fade back to the nothing it always was, while granting new, solid flesh to my squire John. Trusty John has a new body reform on him, and he is flesh once again." Flycatcher explains, "And this is why your army can never hope to defeat mine. All of my host is made up of ghosts given form like John here. Kill them in the thousands and I will restore them instantly back to life. Kill them again and I will restore them again, and again, and again, without cease. In the meantime, we'll whittle down your troops slowly. It may take days, weeks, or months, but we'll eventually destroy your army completely. The general can't believe this. He says, he is sorcerers. They can surely... Flycatcher interrupts the general and says, "In my kingdom, no magic can work here but mine. Leave the field, general. You've already been defeated. So the only honorable course left to you is to preserve the lives of your men." General Hildebrand, he thinks on it. He can't believe this, but he doesn't see what choice he has. He worries, though. If he abandons the battle, the Emperor would surely have his head. He can't surrender before any battle was actually fought. Flycatcher replies, "I suspected as much, so allow me to offer an alternative to so much needless slaughter. I propose a combat of champions. I'll represent my side, and if I win, you and all your forces will depart my lands, never to return. But if your champion beats me, we will surrender ourselves into your hands to do it as you see fit." Hildebrand, he thinks on it and accepts these terms. In the Fabletown business office, they continue to be glued to the magic mirror, watching these harrowing events unfold. Flycatcher is preparing for battle. He admits to his allies he is scared. He never actually fought anything before. Lancelot tells him, "Don't worry, sir. As long as you wear that armor and carry Excalibur, you'll be invincible in battle." Later on, down by a waterfall, the Battle of Champions is about to begin. Flycatcher, representing his kingdom, and Hildebrand's champion named Grinder the Troll. Grinder the Troll is massive. How can Flycatcher ever wish to best him? The battle begins. With Flycatcher's armor, he manages to dodge some of Grinder's moves. But as Flycatcher swings Excalibur at Grinder, Flycatcher does not wish to spill blood, so he only hits Grinder with the flat of Excalibur's blade, not the sharp side that is typically for cutting and killing. Lancelot, he watches Flycatcher hit the troll with the flat of the blade and he's losing his shit. What is Flycatcher doing? Flycatcher's armor allows him great speed and dexterity, and he can skillfully avoid Grinder's hits. But still, Flycatcher only whacks Grinder with the flat of his blade. The fighting went on for a long time. Finally, Grinder was exhausted. He was too tired to go on, and he stated, "I yield to you, great king. Slay me quickly, please." Flycatcher tells the troll, "If I'd intended to kill you, I would have used the sharp edge of my blade. Rise, troll, and go on your way. I've defeated you, and that's enough." Grinder says to Flycatcher to just kill him, please. They will kill him anyway for losing. Flycatcher tells him, "Well, that's silly and a wasteful policy. Since you're no longer welcome then in the Empire, why not stay here as my most welcome subject in my kingdom? You fought bravely and well, and only lost due to the great powers aiding me. Not exactly fair, but this is war after all." Grinder the Troll accepts. He's going to stay in Flycatcher's kingdom. Fly tells him to rest and eat. Tomorrow, Wayland will put him to work. They can use his strength to help build. Well, after the fight is over, Flycatcher talks with Lancelot. Lancelot yells at Flycatcher for not using the sharp side of his sword. He could have been killed out there. Flycatcher asks, "I thought I was invincible in battle." Lancelot continues yelling, "Only if you fight the way you're meant to. A sword is supposed to be used as a sword, not a paddle to discipline some wayward child." Flycatcher replies, "I told you before, I'm determined to find a way to do this without bloodshed." Flycatcher, he gets word that Hildebrand has decided to attack anyway with his army. I guess he was unwilling to abide by the trial by combat. Flycatcher was afraid of this, so to combat this, he decides to let the ghosts act like ghosts. Flycatcher, he releases the ghosts from their fleshy form and has them as ghosts advance on Hildebrand's army. Hildebrand's army is a little frightened when they see a dark cloud of ghosts advancing on them. Fables issue 68, The Good Prince Part 8, Kingdom. the ghosts swarm Hildebrand's troops, and they enter the minds of the Empire's soldiers and dredge up images of every sin from their past, every horror they perpetrated, and they could show them to them again and again and again. The Empire's soldiers had no will to fight back. Their courage was shattered. Some of the goblins even cried from what they saw. Look at this one here crying, what a baby! Hildebrand's army, they disbanded and retreated. General Hildebrand himself, affected by the ghosts, remembered something from his past, and he was saying, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. You were my dear friend and mentor. I should never have betrayed you to your political enemies, but I was young and ambitious, and you stood in the way of my advancement. In the aftermath of the retreat, the Empire's elites hunted down every soldier that retreated and executed them by the thousands. Ironically enough, the only soldiers of Hildebrand's that day that escaped the Emperor's wrath did so by returning to Haven and bending the knee to Flycatcher, where he would take them in and give them a second chance. The Empire, they sent some more hordes of troops to Haven, and Flycatcher turned and scattered them all away as well. The Empire sent dragons, but the dragons are magical, and they lost their powers as they approached Flycatcher's kingdom, as only Flycatcher's magic would work within his kingdom. In the Imperial City, the figurehead Emperor and Geppetto are talking, as Geppetto is touching up some paint on the Emperor's body. Geppetto has ordered a harsh crackdown throughout the Empire in response to this Haven situation. If anyone hints of being sympathetic to Flycatcher and Haven, they are being put to death. As the Emperor and Geppetto are discussing, outside of their chambers, Ghost, Bluebeard, and Shere Khan are there. Geppetto's warlocks have, for months, been slowly doing various treatments to try and make the two of them solid again, in exchange for them showing the way initially to Haven. Bluebeard is even able to hold a glass for a whole minute now, but both of them are still annoyed that the process is taking so long. Shere Khan wishes the warlocks were quicker and more skilled with their craft. Back inside the chambers, Geppetto and the Emperor continue talking. They discuss Haven. The figurehead Emperor says his armies and sorcerers can do nothing, and they can't afford to send another army in a fruitless effort to overthrow this new king. They don't have another army to spare, and marching on him has become the surest way to deliver new recruits into his ever-swelling ranks. So instead, the figurehead Emperor suggests that they just ignore Haven, set up a blockade around it so that Flycatcher's powers can't affect them, and no new people will be able to get to him. Geppetto, he is against this though, he argues. But what happens when he decides to expand his borders? Geppetto decides to do something drastic about this Haven situation. He orders the formation of a golden horde. The Emperor is nervous about it though, he argues.
But father, that would strip the Empire bare of nearly every wooden soldier in every position of power.
Geppetto replies the machinery of imperial bureaucracy will muddle along without them for a month or so, or else we didn't build our political structures as soundly as we imagined. But my wooden sons aren't subject to a fear of ghosts, and no magic in any world is greater than that which issues from the sacred grove. A single horde composed entirely of wooden soldiers, 20 full legions worth, will conquer where your fragile armies of flesh have failed. The figurehead Emperor still thinks it is not a good idea, but Geppetto insists. He orders, I'll hear no more of it. My mind is made up. Form the Golden Horde and send them marching on Haven, and raze it to the ground. Slaughter everyone, even unto the smallest child. Sow its fields with salt, and leave no stone standing on another. We see in Haven, their society is really coming along. A whole town is built. There are street signs. There is even a baseball stadium where some goblins are facing the ghosts in a match, and Flycatcher is there right now, and he is playing catcher. Eventually, though, Lancelot, Trusty John, and Wayland Smith have to interrupt the baseball match and get Flycatcher. They warn him of the massive army of wooden soldiers that have arrived at their borders. Flycatcher, he is concerned, he says. This isn't just any Empire army, Lance. This is the one I've been waiting for. The one I was sent here to face. For good or ill, this ends it. This is my last battle. Promise me, all three of you, that you'll stay here after I'm gone, that you'll continue what we've only just started here. All my guiding visions end after today. I can only conclude that I won't be here after it's done, but if what I try to do today works, then the power of the Emperor over this land will be broken for all time. If that costs me my life, then it's more than a fair price to pay. Lance, stay here to take down my final message to the Emperor. Wayland, keep everyone away from the enemy. I won't need the ghost army this time. And John, go fetch my armor, please. Polish it up good. We don't want to make a bad impression on our guests. Trusty John asks, of course, sir, and your sword, too? Flycatcher says, no, I won't be needing Excalibur this time. Keep it safe with you. By its power, you should all be able to maintain your solid living forms as long as you stay within the kingdom. Flycatcher, once he is in his suit of armor, he goes to parley with the Wooden Army. The Wooden Army is about 40,000 strong. It is basically the entirety of Geppetto's wooden fleet. Flycatcher goes to talk with them alone. He tells the wooden soldiers, "Greetings, soldiers of the Sacred Grove. I am Ambrose the First, King of Haven. My ghosts can do naught to frighten such as you, nor can any magic of mine conquer the raw power of the Sacred Grove. So I willingly surrender myself and all of my magic to you, to add its power to increase your own arboreal magic." The wooden soldiers, they prepare to kill Flycatcher. Fables, issue 69, The Good Prince Part 9, Eternal. As the wooden soldiers attack Flycatcher, a bright light extrudes from him. Flycatcher tells them, "Don't worry, my new friends. The pain won't last long. It's just a small byproduct of my armor's magic, adding its humble powers to your infinitely greater magic. This isn't an attack, it's a gift, a new beginning. Your discomfort will pass." Somehow, the magics of Flycatcher's armor adds itself to the Sacred Grove's magic of all of the wooden soldiers. This causes all of the wooden soldiers to suddenly sprout into an enormous grove of trees from which they initially came. One of the wooden soldiers who is turning back into a tree, before he turns, he says, "Is this what sleep is really like? It's not entirely unpleasant." And then he formed into a tree. Flycatcher, he says, "It's done. It's over," and he passes out from exhaustion. In the aftermath, eventually Trusty John, Lancelot, Wayland, and others come to help Flycatcher. And when they get to him, they are surprised to find out he is still alive. Flycatcher, awake now, says he is surprised his visions did not go past this. It led him to believe that he did not expect to survive beyond this confrontation. The others ask Flycatcher, "What does all this mean? What happened?" Flycatcher answers, "Well, that's a good question. I think it means several things. First and foremost, it means that all of our wars are over. It's finished. Now that I have the immeasurable powers of the magic grove to draw upon, no one can even set foot on my lands or fly overhead without my permission. We have no need for an army anymore within Haven's boundaries, which, by the way, I think I'll expand again in a day or two." Flycatcher orders them all to not disturb the magic grove trees. Someone asks, "But what about the adversary?" Won't he come to take his wooden sons back? Flycatcher replies, I can't say if he'll visit or not, that's none of our affair, but his power over the grove is broken forever, and he'll soon discover, poor man, that his own grove, the one that these soldiers were originally carved from, is dead and will never grow back. In all of the countless worlds, there can only be one magic grove at a time, and this time, its powers have been transferred here. Another resident of Haven asks, will you make wooden soldiers yourself then, and send them out to conquer other lands? Flycatcher experiences a nightmarish vision of an older version of himself, waging war on countless worlds with a wooden soldier army. This vision causes Flycatcher to answer the question, no, he will not create an army. He declares that this grove is to be left alone, and it to be no more than a place of quiet reflection and peace. In Fabletown, Red Riding Hood has decided that she misses Flycatcher too much, and she wants to go live in Haven with him. She's all packed up, and Boy Blue is going to transport her. In Haven that night, Flycatcher and his closest advisors are celebrating their victory over the wooden soldiers. Flycatcher tells Lancelot, Lancelot of the Lake, my friend, your redemption is now complete, and you're released to go on to your reward as promised. Flycatcher, he asks Lancelot to take Excalibur with him and throw it into the biggest lake he passes. Flycatcher explains, we have no further need of the great sword here, so let it pass on to the next true and rightful king, whose cause is just and whose need is dire. Flycatcher then turns to Trusty John, and he tells him that he is appointing him Lord High Chancellor of Haven. Flycatcher, he doesn't want to deal with politics. He'll come running in a crisis if it comes up, but he wishes to take a back seat now, and he wants Trusty John to deal with the day-to-day operations of running Haven. Flycatcher asks Wayland Smith what he would like. Wayland, he thinks on it and replies, well, you see, sire, it's like this. Your kingdom's expanded a lot in a very short time, and it's about to expand again, so we need more of everything, more roads, more towns, more castles, and keeps for the knights and nobles that rally to your banner. And don't even get me started on the need for new farmland and irrigation works, and Flycatcher cuts Wayland off and replies, very well then, Wayland. You are hereby pronounced the builder of the kingdom with all the powers and rights that implies. And Wayland, when you're building those extra castles you mentioned, start with one for yourself. It seems to me that your job should rightfully come with a title of Duke or Count or Baron or some such, whichever one is the highest next to the king. After this is when Boy Blue and Red Riding Hood arrive. Flycatcher hugs them both. Red Riding Hood announces that she intends on staying here. She says, a great king needs a hostess and a social secretary to plan his banquets and festivals of state and other important engagements. You can't afford to set a rude table when princes and ambassadors and other great personages come to call. Now, normally that would be your queen's duty, but until that day comes when you find yourself a proper queen, I'm volunteering to fill in. She also brought Flycatcher his hat back from Fabletown that he always wore. In the coming days, Flycatcher eventually told all of the ghosts in a big ceremony, you've served me well, and now each of you have a choice to make. You can remain here in a semblance of life, or you can finally pass on to whatever fates await you. I have no advice to offer as to which is the better course, but if you stay here, you'll need to remain within the boundaries of Haven. Once you pass beyond, turning again into ghosts, I will no longer have any power to restore you. You'll automatically pass on to whatever comes next. Going forward, Flycatcher let others handle the day-to-day, while he did the leisurely activities like playing soccer with the local kids. Later on, Flycatcher told Boy Blue to pass on a message from him to all of the farm fables up at the farm. He told Boy Blue to tell them that Haven is open to any of the farm fables who are still annoyed at being cooped up there for all of their lives. They are welcome to come to Haven and live here. Flycatcher asks if Boy Blue can transport them here between his military missions. Flycatcher then pauses and says, "Or I suppose I could go fetch them." Flycatcher, he has somehow absorbed and borrowed some of Boy Blue's witching cloak magic, and Flycatcher can now teleport himself around. In the coming weeks and months, Flycatcher would sometimes teleport himself back to the Woodland Luxury Apartments building in Fabletown, and he would mop the floors. One day when Grimble saw Flycatcher and wondered what he was doing here, Fly explained that sometimes he misses the old days, being a janitor, and this floor really could use a good mopping. Flycatcher asks Grimble, "Hey Grimble, I don't suppose you'd want to go to the movies today? All 3 Jack films are playing back to back." Grimble replied, "Nah, he's got a long nap planned, but if Flycatcher can bring him back some popcorn." And with that about wraps up this story of a lowly janitor called Flycatcher, who endured many trials and saved many lost people, and then he became a great and powerful king, and his kingdom was at peace. And with that, we end Volume 10. Alright, so that was Fables Volume 10. Let me go through my thoughts on this one. I thought it was really cool to go on this journey with Flycatcher, watching him team up with Lancelot, get this armor, get Excalibur, go down the Witching Well. I loved in the Witching Well that we got to bring all of these dead characters back into the story and spend some more time with them. Trusty John got a redemption arc, Waylon Smith got to come back into the story, as well as many Easter eggs of other characters like Boo Bear and various others in the background. It was really cool to see them. It was cool to see Bluebeard and Shere Khan back in the story, even though they remained in their villainous kind of ways. Now, when we got to the Kingdom of Haven, I loved the subversion of expectations that there was not going to be tons of fighting, actually. Flycatcher was going to accomplish all of these things with not actually fighting and not killing anyone himself. And I thought that was really, really cool. And it was great seeing how desperate the Adversary's armies were at trying to combat this. So all that was really cool. And I liked the status quo shift we have in the end, where this Kingdom of Haven is now established, and there is nothing the Emperor can do about it anymore. And the wooden soldiers are now taken off the board, and they have been turned into trees once again. So all that was really great. Now, my negatives in this volume are, it was a little bit hard to wrap your head around all of the magical abilities of Flycatcher and kind of be able to rationalize how he is able to do the things he is able to do. So he has this magical armor and Excalibur, and he can survive in the Witching Well. I can believe that, although he is able to turn the ghosts in the Witching Well into flesh and keep bringing them back to life. I don't really understand how the magical armor and sword would allow him to do that, but okay. And then we're in the Kingdom of Haven. He has more magical abilities there, and then he's also somehow able to turn all of the wooden soldiers into trees once again. I can't really figure out how he's able to do that. So some of the magical ability stuff I don't think was explained the best, but still, I think this volume was very entertaining and exciting, and I like where we end with the status quo at the end here. So I think it was a great volume. I'm going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching. Next week, I will be covering Fables Volume 11, and that is a huge volume. It will end the Adversary Geppetto story arc in a very exciting way. So I thought it would be really cool for the next video to do a premiering live stream video. So on April 30th, Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, I will be live streaming Volume 11, and we can chat during it and talk and sort of celebrate the conclusion of the Adversary arc together. And once that is done, I will be moving on to another comic book series. I may return to Fables again one day, but this one is going to be basically the conclusion of this season of my Fables coverage. So I will see you all then there for that. and we can see how the adversary arc ends.